January 6th, we watched that. I knew he'd be there. Wasn't sure how much of a role he would play in it. And I saw some footage of what's now known as the stack. I knew immediately before I zoomed in that that was Stewart and that was Oath Keepers.
Oath Keepers founder Stewart Rhodes will stand trial alongside 4 other members of his militia group. They're the first January 6th rioters to face rare seditious conspiracy charges.
My name is Tasha Adams, formerly Tasha Rhodes. I am the estranged wife of Elmer Stewart Rhodes, the leader of Oath Keepers.
I'm Dakota Vaughn Adams, born Dakota Stewart Rhodes. I lived absolutely under the thumb of an emotional terrorist.
And it was just so intolerable. It was just a dark and depressing existence.
I feel every bit as completely ridiculous wearing this right now as I ever did.
Getting out was one of the hardest things, and really up until we got out, we did not know if we were all going to get out alive.
I was the last of all the children to see Stewart for what he was. I was the last child to maintain any kind of loyalty. Among my earliest memories was I startled Stewart while I was waking him up, and he snapped upright and drew a folding knife on me when I was, I think, around 4 years old. I grew up absolutely believing in Stewart's vision of the shadowy, malicious, communist conspiracy seeking to institute a new world order. And Stewart's actions to selflessly save the country and stand up for America and the Constitution made him a direct target of these people. Stewart's obsession with preparing for the apocalypse was his only hobby, his main purpose in life, and consumed our lives entirely. We ended up living off of these survival storage items. The family lived off of exclusively oatmeal and apple chips for months at a time because that was the largest amount of bulk stuff that we had.
It's really hard to articulate the despair, what it feels like to feel helpless.
I am coming to terms with the full reality that I did not have a father growing up. In practice, I had one parent and a dangerous obstacle.
Stewart was a disabled veteran. He had broken his back in the military. He was talking about starting an organization for military, veterans, police, people who had sworn the oath. He was in a manic mode, and he would do that sometimes. He would sleep for days, and then he would just get crazy about something and type for days. You know, a reasonable person would probably say, well, I'm going to take my baby and go sit in the living room somewhere. But he would get upset if I tried to do that. I would have to stay in the room with him. So I'm trying to get this poor baby to sleep with this blasting music. And he kept saying, wait till you see what I wrote. That was the night he typed up the 10 orders we will not obey. So he posted it. And it got viral by morning.
Stewart Rhodes is the founder of the Oath Keepers. Do you guys have the current firepower to stand up against the federal government if you people are ordered to do those things?
It's the obligation all of us have who have sworn an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And so what we're calling on active duty military and police to do is to simply stand down and to refuse to comply with unlawful orders.
Oath Keepers catapulted from a draft blog post from a guy who's on the verge of being evicted for non-payment of rent and whose children don't have any food to being a national news figure.
There's no expiration date on that oath.
Stewart Rhodes, the founder. Stewart Rhodes, the founder of Oath Keepers.
And then As time went on and Stewart's apocalypse fantasy became more and more prominent, he would begin to turn Oath Keepers into a roving, anti-government private army.
We stress in Oath Keepers, military, current serving, and law enforcement for a reason. Because we know that if the day should come in this country when a full-blown dictatorship would come, or tyranny, we know that it can only happen if those men, our brothers in arms, go along and comply with unconstitutional, unlawful orders.
Part of me was like, maybe this is a thing that will fix him, because he kept saying the reason why he loses his temper, the reason why he's violent, the reason why he acts like this is because he hadn't found his path in life. And I needed to help him find his path and heal him, and then he will stop acting like this. And so part of me thought, well, maybe this will help fix whatever it is that's wrong with him.
Horrified as I was by the coming apocalypse, the potential of Oath Keepers to mitigate or prevent this was a spot of hope for me. I had a childhood set of body armor. We sporadically attended tactical training while Stewart mocked me from the sidelines with his copy for not being a well-drilled Minuteman. I feel every bit as completely ridiculous wearing this right now as I ever did. I feel a lot of conflict over these guns. I have absolutely no idea whether I like shooting or like being a gun nerd, because every experience that I've had with shooting or firearms related activity has been some kind of Stewart or Oath Keeper activity and has been thoroughly unpleasant. There'd been a gradually growing awareness that my home life was not okay. In particular, with Stewart getting increasingly unstable when he was at home, and seeming to regard me as I got older as a rival male in some weird way, like a rival male authority in the household that had to constantly be kept in check. And I also saw how, especially if the apocalypse was not actually happening, then all of this was pointless. The way we lived was pointless. The plan, it took a solid 2 years of effort, which is something that anyone should keep in mind the next time somebody is talking about a domestic abuse case and says, why didn't they just leave? 2 years of planning.
It was just so intolerable. It was just a dark and depressing existence, and very hard to remember that there was life outside of that house. Getting out was terrifying, heart pounding, adrenaline racing. Our plan was to leave early in the morning, and early morning comes and the kids and I are all exchanging glances, and Stewart just went into manic mode. At the time we were on 20 acres in the middle of nowhere, so finally we came up with the idea that we were going to take some major appliance we had that was broken, take it to the dump. We also wanted to take a couple of those rifles, to sell. Dakota had it in his mind that we should take his favorite rifle, which I think was some type of sniper rifle that he didn't even know how to shoot.
Like, my family's anxiety is ultra spiked because I am taking a risk, but it's a risk that has to be taken if we're going to be able to afford to go through with the divorce, and it's already been filed. When he was focused on something else for a few seconds, just walked up with my mom staring at me the entire time, picked up this rifle, turned around, and carried it out the front door, stock folded to make it more compact, and just pressed against my body like this so it's concealed in front of me.
Dakota just walked right past him with that rifle. I had never been so afraid of anything. And we all got in the car, and then Dakota started to drive off, and Stewart stopped us just as we were leaving, and I could just remember seeing the girls' eyes just bug out.
My younger siblings all ducked down in the back seat because they're not supposed to be. Nobody's mentioned them being in the car. And I roll down the window expecting that we've been caught and this is about to turn into some kind of car chase.
And he said, pick up some steak on your way back. And that one moment kind of bothered me because I just saw it almost in a disassociated way of just this person, whole life is about to change. He thinks he's going to have a steak dinner with his family tonight, and everything's going to change. Nothing will ever be the same again from this moment on for him. And that was certainly true. I had a hard time separating when something bad happens to Stewart, something bad happens to me. And so that was a huge part of like that fear of emotionally, like he's going to be really upset with this. And I just remember just kind of sinking to the floor with my arms around my knees, thinking he's going to be so upset. But the days after were almost as bad. We didn't know if he was going to come into the house at night. The dogs bark at something. We think we hear him, think we see him everywhere. I mean, somebody had to stay awake and guard everyone.
I had to switch directly from being effectively a basement neat in a pile of trash and tactical gear to accepting full adult responsibility and taking on effectively a head of household role under the most stressful conditions possible. I found the time and the mental energy to do everything that I could to make sure that the kids got to soccer games and do children's theater and after-school activities and get to have, to the fullest extent possible, all of the normal childhood that I was denied and never going to get back.
And all of us veterans who swore that oath, until you're age 65, you can be called up as the militia to support and defend the Constitution.
It is hard to put into words what exactly we witnessed today because we've not seen this before.
Only one priority. We just had protesters. Peace circle. Breach the line. We need backup.
If he's not going to do the right thing, he's going to let himself be removed illegally, then we should have brought rifles. Could have fixed it right then and there.
Stewart is on trial for seditious conspiracy. He is looking at roughly 20 years, I believe. He is being charged with trying to essentially delay the election and cause mayhem. And I think that the case is pretty good.
Phone records place Stewart Rhodes on the Capitol steps on January 6, communicating with Oath Keepers before they breached the doors.
Stewart fundamentally saw the continuing Trump administration and Trump staying in power as his best bet.
They charge you with seditious conspiracy as if you planned January 6th.
They're trying to hang this on President Trump and also on the entire MAGA movement. So they have to manufacture a non-existent plot, which is absurd. You know, if you look at the people, what people did that day, that's not an insurrection. That's a mostly peaceful protest. That's what that really was. I mean, there was no attempt to overthrow the government. It would have looked very differently if that had been the intent that day. That's all I'm going to say.
Stewart is helping to spin a narrative in direct contradiction of the plainly evident facts to create a storyline in which he is the martyr he's always wanted to be.
I want him to go to prison because it's the only way we're safe. And that's what it means for me, no child support. It also means if I can't get this divorce finalized, I mean, he's being sued by everyone. He's being sued literally for millions of dollars. I could be on the hook for all of that. It's a difficult situation all the way around, but it's a much, much better situation with him in prison. I'm safer, the kids are safer, and the rest of the country's safer with him in prison.
By joining the volunteer fire department, I had something outside of myself that was not this all-encompassing apocalypse myth for the first time in my life. More than anything else, I saw people who lived up to the endless empty rhetoric that I was surrounded by growing up about sacrifice and civil responsibility. I'd heard all of the words at 1,000 speaking engagements, and joining the fire department was the first time I'd ever seen anyone live it. The threat of Stewart being able to rebuild his following certainly weighs on my mind. Stewart based his entire identity, especially in founding Oath Keepers, around this idea of service to the United States Constitution, standing up against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I don't believe in rhetoric anymore, and I believe that any promise is only as good as the intent behind it.